to the Cougar Tailgate, where BYU fandom lives. Here's your hosts, Jason Shepard and Lauren McLean.
What is up, Cougar fans? We get to say it for yet another week. BYU is undefeated.
Yeah, they are.
They luckily made it out alive after 3 straight victories against Lone Star State opponents. And there was nothing creepy about the Cougars coming out on top. Hopefully, we're in for another treat tonight. Shep, how many Halloween references do you think we'll be able to throw into today's show?
Well, let's just say within the first 15 to 20 seconds, that was, 2 or 3? So I'm going to probably at least say 30.
And we're just getting started.
This is an hour show, so we've got plenty of time to mix those in. What's up, everybody? Jason Shepard with you. Happy Halloween to everybody. Coming up on the show, we're going to get into the spooky spirit. See, there's another one. And talk about the scariest, yet another, BYU football players. So the scariest BYU football players, we're not talking about physically they're scary looking. Talking about the way they play.
Well, maybe some.
Some of them
we'll
are
see.
Yes, yeah. But if they are scary looking, we're not going to bring that up.
We won't tell. We won't say anything
about
it. On the air, at least.
Yeah, so we'll talk about the scariest BYU football players. Also get to know today's opponent like we always do on the program. It's the Western Kentucky Hilltoppers. No, not the Big Reds. That's just the mascot's name. And speaking of the mascot, we got a lot of stuff to talk about the mascot. I'm still not 100% sure what that is.
I'm not either. It's weird.
Honestly, the first thing I think of when I see their mascot, and the mascot is named Big Red. They are the Hilltoppers. We'll also explain where the nickname comes from. But every time I look at that mascot, Big Red, I for some reason I don't know if it's Grimace from McDonald's or if it's like the big Mayor McCheese. There's something McDonald's related that always comes to mind when I think of that Big Red mascot.
Look it up, you guys. It's literally a giant red blob with
it's like
eyes.
A ball or a blob.
Yeah.
Again.
It's furry.
He's called Big Red. He's called Big Red, and apparently they love him.
Yeah, I guess so. Well, on the holiday where everyone loves putting on costumes and masks, we'll take a closer look at the creatures on the sidelines during every game. BYU and WKU boast 2 of the most popular mascots in college sports. We just mentioned one, the Big Red Blob. SiriusXM ran a Twitter poll where Cosmo and Big Red were the 2 finalists. So leading up to the game this week, ESPNU held a virtual pep rally where the 2 mascots could face off. And we're going to listen to a clip from that event.
Well, now, we're not going to actually hear from the mascots, right? Because mascots don't talk.
Hey-oh, no, they don't.
Okay, so that's what somebody actually said, hey, you know what you should do? This was like an idea for BYU Sports Nation this week. Somebody said, why don't you get Cosmo and Big Red on the show and interview them?
To sit there in silence.
I thought, well, since they don't talk, that may not necessarily fly as a segment.
I have to say that I actually have interacted with several Cosmos. Being the sideline reporter for football, they've had to tell me, kind of whisper some things. I don't know if I'm even supposed to talk about that.
I don't even know what you're talking about.
But
mascots
I know.
aren't...
Listen, I don't want to burst everyone's bubble.
They're unable to talk.
It caught me off guard. Literally, when Cosmo came in, he whispered something in my ear. I remember I was sideline reporting one game, and I was like, ah! It kind of scared me. No,
you just don't
expect
talk.
It. Yeah, you don't expect it at all.
But before we get too excited for Halloween night at LaVell Edwards Stadium, let's look back on how the Cougs stayed unbeaten. BYU knocking on heaven's door and the top 10 after a 52-14 blowout. We say that every week. A blowout, dominating performance.
It's so fun.
They destroyed the other team.
Except for the Houston week. That was the one exception. No.
What, they still won. It was the UTSA.
They blew them out in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, it was UTSA.
Yeah, UTSA was it.
Or was it? Yeah, UTSA.
Yep.
It was the game right before Houston. Again, we look back on that game where it was close. Closer than certainly we all expected. That may have turned out to be a blessing in disguise to kind of jumpstart the team for the rest of the season.
Yeah, I think so too.
Especially with Boise State on the horizon next week, and boy, next week's show is going to be fun previewing that one. But yeah, I mean, with what we've seen, as teams just continue to roll, and last week against Texas State was certainly no difference.
That's right, and it was good to have fans back, by the way. That's just a little side note. 6,000 fans only, but it was so nice to hear actual real crowd noise at LaVell Edwards Stadium.
And 6,000 more expected for the game tonight. So
I love it.
Everybody did exactly what they needed to do so that for tonight you can have fans back in again.
Good work, everybody.
Very
Way
nice.
to follow the rules. BYU is pretty good at that for the most part.
Absolutely.
So Texas State scored first, Shep, and honestly, I was like, what? What?
Well, it's because they came out with this weird formation where they had 3 offensive linemen when you have 5 offensive linemen, but they came out with only 3 and then put the other 2 offensive linemen far away, like in where you normally will line up a wide receiver, and BYU was like, what?
I'm sorry, what are you doing?
Excuse
What's
me?
happening
What is happening here?
Do, 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 do. That's kind of what it felt like.
But if you're a team that's favored to lose, if you're like a 30-point underdog, you better be pulling out all the tricks. And it worked because BYU
Jake Spavital did that.
Had no idea how to handle it. Now, after the first series, BYU adjusted, and then it was game over at that point. But it's still kind of shocking to see how they went down and scored right out of the gate.
They bulldozed the Bobcats after that 28-0 run in the first half.
Yeah.
So BYU's like, yeah, we ain't playing that game. We're not going to play that game. And then they got it going. It was awesome. And then BYU held Texas State to just 144 yards of offense before putting in the reserves midway through the third quarter. Shit.
Yeah, basically, you had Zach Wilson playing a half, putting up unreal numbers, including a pass that will certainly go down in his BYU highlight film. It will probably go down because I think we all anticipate that he will continue to be in the race for the Heisman at the end of the year. It will go into his Heisman highlight reel that they'll show at the end of the season as they're getting ready to announce the winner of that. Like, it was a pass from one side of the field. It was from the right side all the way across his body, across the field, into the end zone.
60. How many yards?
Basically, the football was in the air for 64 yards for the touchdown. It was unbelievable. He rolled out to his right near the sideline, and coaches will always tell you, you never throw across your body to the other side of the field. Mm-hmm. Not only did he say, yeah, I'm going to do it anyway, because I can do this, it was all upper body, all arm strength, and 64 yards in the air.
It was a dime.
Yes, it was
a dime.
Yes, a dime into the corner of the end zone. It was awesome.
Listen, people call Taysom Hill Captain America.
For good reason.
Yes, and he deserves that title. But the arm strength of Zach Wilson, my goodness.
You know what?
He needs what's his superhero? Who's Zach Wilson?
I don't know. We're going to have to think on that one.
Yeah, we'll think about that.
You know, here's what this is actually. If you're one, I know there's some people that it's an either or situation. You either watch college or you watch pro. And then obviously a lot of people just watch football regardless of what level it is. But especially at the quarterback position, you're starting to see this a lot in the NFL. All of these quarterbacks, regardless of the position of their legs and their lower body, it's all upper body strength throwing the football. They could have used to be you had to like use your legs to push you got more on your pass. Nowadays, they don't need it. I mean, they could not even, they could be in mid-run, not being able to push off with their legs at all and make an unbelievable throw using just their arm. The athleticism of quarterbacks these days is insane.
I feel like Lavelle Edwards would watch that pass and be like, ugh. Don't you just?
Yeah.
Just because he was kind of he's the one who started the forward pass, one of the main guys. And so that definitely wasn't what he started. It wasn't in the plan, but things have definitely evolved. And it makes it more fun to watch. It makes things more entertaining because you're like, how did he do that?
Look, people like offense.
Yeah.
They say defense wins championships, and a lot of times defense wins games, but everybody wants to see a good offense. That's just the way it is.
It's true. Zach Wilson also had 16 receiving yards of a pass from Neil Pau.
That's right. And a good pass from Neil Pau, as a matter of fact.
It was a really great pass.
Yeah, BYU totaled 579 yards of offense in that game, almost 600 yards, including a 49-yard run by punter Ryan Rico, which didn't go over super well with Coach Satake. It was certainly not what they wanted when they had the big lead. And but I mean, it was certainly not anything that was called. And as soon as the game was over, Coach Satake went over and talked with Coach Spavital and made sure he knew that wasn't something that was called. And Kalani said afterwards that that's actually what they practice.
Right.
That there's on those rugby style punts, it's actually an option. And so he took the option. Speaking of Ryan Rico, and because that's what they're trained to do. Like,
he saw the opening and he ran.
If you see something, you're supposed to take it. And so Kalani said, "That's on me. I should have just said, even though it's what we work on, we're just going to go ahead and kick it." So I mean, it certainly was. There was no malice There was nothing. They were trying to run up the score, try and demoralize Coach Spavital and his team. There was nothing like that at all. But yeah, it was certainly one of those things after the game, and on the ESPN broadcast, one of the broadcasters was kind of going off on it a little bit, which he ended up taking some heat from BYU fans on social media afterwards. But I mean, that's the world we live in these days, right?
No matter what you say, you're going to take some heat from BYU fans.
That's true.
But Ryan Rico comes in, he starts hearing Rocky music in his ears, and he sees that hole, and he's like, "Oh, I'm going, man! Oh my goodness, I've been waiting for this moment my whole life."
Hey, look. BYU's punter doesn't get to do a whole lot these days.
No, exactly.
You need to take advantage when you have the ball in your hand, right?
That's so true. So looking forward, BYU is heavily favored over the 2-4 Hilltoppers tonight, and I think they're going to take care of business. I think they absolutely have to take care of business and do it in convincingly fashion, which they've done the past few weeks, and I think it's going to be a fun game to watch. And in these games, yes, it is hard that the schedule's not as good as it was going to be, but it is so much fun to watch BYU's offense against some of these lower tier teams. I have to admit. It's
just fun to see this offense humming like it is right now. I mean, not only like the play calling is fun, it's an entertaining offense that we're watching, but then you put into place having Zach Wilson, the quarterback, and some of the throws he's making, and the fact that the deep ball is certainly more a part of the offense than what we've seen over the last couple of seasons. Now, it's not because they didn't want to go deep, but now it's just all working in terms of personnel and the opportunities and things like that. It's just a really fun team to watch right now, and why wouldn't it be? You're undefeated. You're number 11 in the country. And people are talking about you as if you can go undefeated, and obviously with the game next week at Boise State, I mean everything's going to come down to that game on the Smurf turf next Friday in Boise.
Boise State ranked number 25 right now, by the way, after their first win against Utah State. BYU has never won on the blue turf. Is that an unreal statistic?
Yeah, and you don't. It always gets brought up when you've never done something. And it's funny because, immediately I want to say, well, this specific team has never lost up there.
Yeah.
But it is something that's always brought up. I mean, until you do it, that will always be a stat, right?
Until you beat Utah, the stat's going to continue chucking up. It's one of the similar things.
It's a very similar thing. And it is crazy when you think of all of the talented teams that have gone up there. And look, they're just like in the Utah series, there have been opportunities. These games are typically pretty close, and you have like a 2-point conversion. BYU decides to go for it on 2, they don't get it. Taysom's not able to get in.
Right. Don't even bring up
the last time that BYU was up at Boise and Zach was the quarterback, he thought he had some extra time, and BYU ran out of time, and he ended up taking a sack, and they didn't have time down on the goal line.
Yeah, on the goal line.
It's not like there haven't been opportunities to snap that, just like there have been opportunities against Utah. It just hasn't happened.
Isn't it so interesting that there are some teams that year after year, so consistently, there are these tight, strange games.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like Boise State is definitely one of those. Utah is one of those. Utah State is usually one of those, too. There's always something so strange that happens. And I don't know why. I don't know why that happens year after year. It does make it entertaining, but also stressful. And so we'll see what happens next week. But Hilltoppers first.
Yeah,
they got to get past them.
Yeah, we can talk about Boise State.
Right.
I don't want the players thinking about Boise State.
No.
Because like you said, it's about taking care of business. And ahead of the Boise game, BYU needs to have another one of those performances that gets people's attention because the opponent is somebody that you're expected to beat handily. You need to go out there and do that. Mm-hmm. Keep up the high scores, the wide margins of victory so that you stay as high as you can in the polls so that when BYU beats Boise, maybe you can jump even higher. So this is an important game in terms of staying relevant in the polls before the Boise game.
The fact that BYU is knocking on the door of the top 10 with the schedule they've had is absolutely incredible. But a bunch of teams start playing this week, too. So that could be a little detrimental for BYU. So even more so, they need to start playing just out of their minds. And even the win against Boise next week, I think, has to be pretty convincing as well to keep climbing and staying in the conversation.
Coming up on the other side, we're going to get to know a little bit more about Western Kentucky. We're going to talk with a guy. His name is Paul Just, and he is a sports information director emeritus and a historian for the Hilltoppers. He has seen like 50, almost 60 years of athletics at Western Kentucky. And we'll get the scoop on BYU's opponent coming in tonight, the Western Kentucky Hilltoppers, when we come back on the Cougar Tailgate.
Welcome back into the Cougar Tailgate. I'm Lauren McLean.
And I'm Jason Shepard. Stand up and cheer. It's the fight song bringing us back to talk about Western Kentucky. And I'm excited about this one. Paul Just is the official sports information director emeritus and historian for Western Kentucky University Athletics. We always try to talk with somebody that can give us the history of a program, and I think Paul will be able to do just that. First and foremost, Paul, thank you so much for joining us here in the Cougar Tailgate.
My pleasure. Great to be with you.
So, how did you get into the job of historian for the athletic department? Is there a story behind that?
I got older than everybody else.
Well, that's probably part of it, right?
I'm old and still around, and fortunately, I haven't lost all of my memory. So, I retired some years back and started part time the next day and help out in a variety of things, manners. Including questions like you're wanting to ask, they usually wind up with me.
Well, explain what it means to be the historian of the athletic department. You may have just touched on some of it right there, but what does that title mean in terms of responsibilities and things that you may do?
Well, I deal with questions that arise that these younger folks won't be able to answer without a lot of research. I know where to find some of those things, and I can help out in those ways. I deal with part of that is sort of alumni relations with former athletes. I serve as the executive director of our the Letterman's Club, the W Club we call it, is a big part of that. And I work on special projects. With the Hall of Fame, we have an athletic Hall of Fame. Have had it for pushing 30 years now, and just gone into a new situation with that, where we're actually inducting not only individuals but teams, and I'm the one that kind of rides herd on that sort of thing. We recently, I say recently, when you get old, recent means a lot of different things, we celebrated the 100th anniversary of our first athletic event in 2010, and we started a project that time and created a museum encircling the main concourse in EA Diddle Arena, celebrating the history of Western athletics. And I served as the chairman of that project and did most of the writing for it. And digging into things, I thought I knew a lot about what went on here until I started to work on that. I learned more than I knew, but those are the kind of things I deal with.
Well, good for you. That's got to be really fun to be able to still be a part of that program and just keep working, keep going. And Paul, who are some of the prominent names we should be familiar with when it comes to Western Kentucky athletics through the years?
Well, in all sports,
yeah.
We've had a great number of football players that have done quite well. Of course, we played in the early days. There wasn't much organization, and then the NCAA comes along in 38 or 39, and things begin developing. We played college division at that time, and the major schools were in university division, and I would assume BYU has been all along, probably so. Then we went from there to Division I and Division II, and we were Division II. Then they created 1AA for the larger the former Division II schools as a part of Division I, and then we moved up to Division 1A. Now football bowl group, and we did that back about 12 years ago, 2008. That's kind of the sequence there, and I'm not sure. I think I rambled and got away from the question. But that was some of the background for it.
Well, here's one thing that I think a lot of people are curious about, and correct me if I'm wrong. So the name of the not the mascot, but the nickname of the athletic department is the Hilltoppers, and that comes from the fact that the campus is on top of a hill, right? It's as simple as that, correct?
The original part of the campus was on a hill about 350 feet above. In the community of Bowling Green is situated on the Barron River in south central Kentucky. And the elevation of the campus was about 350-some feet above the plain where the rest of the town and the river were. For a long time, like a lot of regional schools with Western and Eastern type names and variety around the country, originated as teachers' colleges. And that's the way it happened here. And when they started sports, they didn't have a nickname. Generally, they were referred to as the teachers or the pedagogues, which, if pull the dictionary out, we'll come it up.
I would have to.
I was going to say, what is that?
That's a teacher.
Okay.
I guess it's Greek. It's certainly Greek to me. But then in the mid 1920s, they began. Coach Diddle had come here, E.A. Diddle, and said we got to have some kind of nickname. And so they bounced around a few times, things around. I don't know what all they used, but they determined that Hilltoppers would suit our campus. So we've been that ever since. And there are some other schools. The Hilltopper nickname was, Marquette was originally Hilltoppers.
I didn't know that.
St. Edward, I think, College in Austin, Texas is Hilltoppers. West Liberty State, a Division II school in West Virginia, is Hilltoppers. And there are a few others. The most interesting one, though, that when I went stumbling onto the history of that name, was that the original nickname of the New York Yankees was Hilltoppers.
Hey.
Really?
Look at that.
Yeah. Isn't that kind of neat? They originally played, this is back in the 1800s, and I'm paraphrasing, and I may get something wrong, but basically, they originally played in a park that was on a hill in the Bronx, and they didn't have another nickname, and that got to be picked on, and it happened. But we're proud to wear it. It's served us well, and it's symptomatic of the geography of our campus.
Paul, you know your stuff. You know a lot of information.
He's the historian.
I know. I know that's your job, but my goodness, who?
Well, you might want to be on to tell the truth and then figure out whether I'm the one lying or telling the
We're currently Googling all the facts you're spitting out here.
So Paul, now here's we're going to take this to the next level. Explaining the Hilltoppers was pretty easy. That's somewhat self-explanatory. Now, the logo is a waving towel, and the mascot, quite honestly, I'm not quite sure what Big Red is. So give everybody an idea about the identity that Western Kentucky has built in terms of the mascot and the waving towel and kind of the history behind that stuff.
Well, they're all tied together. Of course, E.A. Diddle was the basketball coach here for 42 seasons. At the time he retired, he was the winningest coach in the history of college basketball, and he has coached more years at one school than anyone else in the country. Ray, what's his name? Used to be up to Paul, tied him in that regard. Gosh, I know his name, I can't think it. But anyhow, Coach Diddle was pretty excitable. And he came here in 1922 and retired in 1964. But he always nervous on the bench and chewing on a towel and throwing it. And he'd get excited. He'd throw it in the air. He'd use it to slap the floor. And he was also using it as a system to signal his players until some point in the 1940s. I don't remember exactly when. Mid 1940s, I think. Coaches weren't allowed to talk to their players during the game. So he had to have a signaling system, so he used the towel. Then after World War II was over, we began to have more people active in PE and sports and things, and they began to have a disagreement on which towels belonged to the PE department and which towels belonged to the basketball and football teams. So they decided, why don't we dye the towels? We'll dye dye some towels red, and that'll be the athletics towels. And then they decided those towels got dirty, and they put them in a washing machine. And then they had pink towels.
Something everybody can understand that does laundry these days, right?
Yeah, it was created quite a problem. But the athletic director and the assistant coach got together, got a hold, I think, of the Cannon Towel Company. I believe it was Cannon, and asked them if they could provide them permanently colored red towels. So we've been using it ever since. So that's where it came from, and it was his trademark. He carried it with him everywhere. It was white originally, but it was red after we did those, which was a school color, of course. And then as things evolved, Coach Diller retired, and John Oldham took over as the head coach. He was the coach that took us to the Final Four in 1971. After that 71 season, the AD retired, and John was promoted to the athletic director. And he thought we needed a logo. And we've actually got his original sketch that he sent to an artist, a professor on campus that was a noted artist. And that artist took his sketch and created the original version of that red towel logo. So that's been, and people come to games with red towels. Maybe not as much as they used to, but they still do quite a bit of it. And they wave them, and they've been waving them since the 1950s, 1940s. So all these other people, like these pro sports and these other schools, have gone around thinking they got a great deal on a towel. They got to realize it started here.
That is, I love that.
Yeah, so
story.
Take that, Steelers fans.
Yeah,
How about
no
that?
kidding.
You and your terrible towels, right?
Yeah. Well, I wasn't going to say Steelers out loud, but that's one of them.
We'll say it for you.
Yeah, but we've been doing it here a long time, and we've got some great photos of Diddle Arena seats. At one time, seated 13,000 people, and when that place was packed and the red towels were up big, it was pretty intimidating.
I love that story so much.
That's great.
That is a really good story. Paul, after this interview's finished, I'm going to legitimately go back and fact check everything you've said, and if it's even 50% correct, I'm going to be really impressed with you. So
yeah, well,
you're spitting out some really good facts. This is awesome. I love it.
You don't need to do this. This is entertainment, right?
That's right. No. Yeah. So you've lived in Bowling.
It's not politics.
No, it's true. No, we won't fact check you. We'll take it for face value. You've lived in Bowling Green for quite some time. What's your favorite part of the college town environment there?
Oh, geez. That's, gosh, all of it. I just know that when I came out of high school thinking I was going to come over here and get a degree and go back to my high school and teach and coach, and never did that. I have loved my hometown, but I guess the best thing here is it's exceptional young relationship. We have a community, the city and its immediate environs is probably around 100,000 people. We've got about 20,000 on campus. The city is not so big that it overwhelms the school. Neither is the school so big that it overwhelms the city. It's just a nice balance. It's a good place. It's been good people. I've been here 55 years, and I've enjoyed. Well, nobody enjoys everything. I've enjoyed 98% of what
that's
I've
pretty good.
Here, and I figure that's. There's a little town about 30, 40 miles from here that says a little sign going into that town says it's the home of 3,000 happy souls and a few sore heads. And I figure it doesn't get any better than that.
There you go. We're talking with Paul Just. He's the official sports information director emeritus and historian for Western Kentucky University. Now, I'm gonna throw you a little bit of a curveball here, Paul. As somebody that's been around athletics for a long time and you've seen a lot of sports, I'm curious what your impression and what your knowledge is of BYU. This will be the first time these two teams have faced each other in football. Based on just maybe being a casual sports fan and BYU having the history that it does, what do you know about BYU? What have been your impressions from afar of BYU football?
Well, it's a beautiful campus. I have been on the campus a long time ago. And the arena, they still playing in the same place?
Yep,
Lavelle Edwards Stadium. Yeah, it used to be Cougar Stadium.
Yeah, how big? It's huge.
64,000 fans.
Yeah, just under 64, yeah.
No, I'm sorry, in basketball.
In basketball, the Marriott Center. Well,
it
was
used
played,
to be the Smith Field
House. Yeah, it used
House.
to be at the Smith Field House prior to the Marriott Center, but the Marriott Center's been here for quite a while.
Yeah, like 20,000 seats or so.
Yep,
or
exactly.
Like
Yep.
Yeah, that's the one. It's probably been 30 years ago or so. But I know it's a beautiful place, and I know they've got a great reputation, and had some great people come out of that sports program, particularly football and basketball. I'm not as aware of. I'm not aware of a lot of details, but particularly not the other sports. And I'm sure they got a well-rounded program altogether. One of my former assistants spent several years there as an assistant in the SID's office.
Who was that?
His name was Jeff Reynolds.
I know Jeff Reynolds.
You know Jeff Reynolds? Now he's a volleyball coach.
He's a volleyball coach down at Snow. That's right.
Jeff worked
Small
for me
world.
for 2 years as an intern, and one of the best interns I ever had. And he's a sharp young man.
Yeah.
But I know they put out good people. I know it's going to be quite a test for us tomorrow, but we'll give it our best. We'll give it our best. Our coach does a good job of getting them up for games and getting them prepared, and we'll give her a good shot. I understand you got a quarterback that's playing pretty good.
Yeah, he's
playing decently well.
He's on a roll, to say the very least, right now. Yes.
Yes, Paul. And speaking of Western Kentucky and the game tonight, what is a player or storyline about this year's squad that BYU fans can look out for while watching the game?
Well, the storyline. We've struggled. We've shown some good play at times, but we have improved. We're coming off of a wonderful year. It ended in a wonderful way. A kid kicked a 52-yard field goal with no time on the clock. After the other team had 12 men on the field for when he kicked it the first time. But we're a developing team. We have some experience in the lines, and we are we do our darndest to be competitive. We've lost a couple of tough ones. We won a couple of close ones. It's part of the game, and we still have hopes of having a fine second half of the season.
Paul, we've got one last question for you before we let you go, and we thank you so much for giving us this amount of time today. We certainly appreciate it. But and this is something you do not have to be a historian of any university to be able to answer. So we're going to end with a complete softball. Since it is Halloween, what kind of Halloween candy is your favorite? What is the go-to candy for Halloween in the Just House?
Well, considering I'm trying to lose weight, it would be whatever's sugar-free, probably.
Well, there's no fun in that, Paul.
Oh, come on, Paul.
But if I had a favorite all time, it would be a Hershey with almonds.
Ooh, okay, very nice.
That's my dad's favorite too. That's a good one.
Yeah, dead center on the chocolate with good old almonds in there too, just to break it up.
You can't go wrong.
But, no,
can't go wrong with that. Yep. All right, Paul Jess has been with Western Kentucky Athletics for the better part of 6 decades. Thank you so much for giving us some stories of the program and from your time there.
My pleasure. Great to be with both of you.
That was awesome. Look, when you've been around a program like that for that long, to be able to have that knowledge, and especially to be able to recall that knowledge like that is an absolute skill, and somebody that clearly not only has been around it but cares about that program. I really enjoyed that. That was great.
I did too. I can barely recall what I had for breakfast. I could never be the historian of a school, so I was fascinated with everything that Paul had to say. He's He's a fantastic guy. I'm grateful that he got to come on with us.
And now I want a Hershey bar with almonds,
So
because
do
that
I.
sounds pretty good.
It's my dad's favorite, so it's kind of nostalgic for me. When he said that, I'm like, oh, yeah, Hershey with almonds. I love it.
All right, coming up next, it's Halloween here on the Cougar Tailgate. We're going to look at some of the scariest football players in BYU history. Ooh. Are you scared? Don't go anywhere. That's right. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Cougar Tailgate. My name is Jason Shepard.
And I am Lauren McLean. Today is Halloween, and whether you're really into decorating the house, dressing up, and scaring all the neighborhood kids, or
who doesn't like to scare kids, right?
I do, for sure. And more along the lines of cuddling up to watch The Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown. It is the one day a year where we let ourselves get scared, even just a little bit.
Okay, before we get into this topic, fan of Halloween or not?
Fan.
Okay, I am not.
Why?
It is my least favorite holiday of the year by far.
Because you are scared of things?
I don't like to be scared. I am not comfortable dressing up. I try not to eat a ton of sweets.
Okay.
Like all three of those things, you
hate fun. You hate fun. You hate.
I knew I was going to hear that. I knew I was going to hear that.
Shep, but knowing how picky you are with the food you eat and things,
yes.
Shep is a very picky guy. By the way, you guys just thrown out there, so that makes sense to me.
Okay,
that makes sense that you don't love it.
So we'll balance each other out though today. It being Halloween, you love Halloween.
Yep.
I hate it.
Yep.
Okay, so we're balancing each other out.
We're good.
Okay, that's good.
Here you go. Let's continue.
All right.
All year, Zach Wilson has been giving opposing defensive coordinators nightmares. Chug it up. Right now, let's talk about the other scariest players in BYU history. Shep, you start.
All right, how about we start? And again, scary, I'm going to define scary as scary for the opponent. Because there's nothing scary about Kairos Tonga if you know him. In fact,
a gentle giant.
The guy is just a big teddy bear. But I'm going to go with Kairos Tonga because I know in talking with opposing head coaches for pregame on the radio, I know how scared opposing coaches are of Kairos Tonga.
Oh, yeah.
Because they all know where number 95 is when they are getting ready for a football game against BYU. They know Kairos Tonga. The guy officially listed at 6'4", 321, and this is a guy that when you're only rushing three, as BYU's defensive line does, the fact that he can, by himself, handle essentially both gaps in front of him, the two gaps in front of him, tells you all you need to know about his talents. And I do want to tell a story about Kairos Tonga in terms of him not being a scary human being, just being an absolute teddy bear. So 2 seasons ago now, it was, and I may have told this story before in other areas, so if you've heard this will be a little refresher. So there was the BYU Fan Fest that we've had over the last couple of years, and in Nashville 2 years ago, Kairos happened to be one of the players that was there. And so it was May in Tennessee. Obviously, you're in the Midwest, so you have a lot of humidity. And that day was pretty warm and had a lot of humidity, as you would certainly expect at that time of the year. And I remember being behind the autograph line for Kairos and the other players that were there. And there was this woman, this older woman, who was kind of walking in circles, just kind of trying to see where she wanted to go. And you could tell she was really, really hot. I mean, like it was really affecting her. And I see Kairos Tonga get up out of his seat, walk over, there was a cooler by where they were at, grab a bottle of water, and walk out to her and say, "Ma'am, would you like this bottle of water?"
Oh,
he was
what a sweet... You can't tell a pregnant in these stories.
I interviewed him after. I said, "Kairos, you're just a big softy, aren't you?"
You actually shared a chair with Kairos Tonga, did you not?
Not just a chair. We shared a swing.
A swing. That's right.
We shared a swing in Nashville. So that is a story scary for the opponents, not a scary human being. He is a great human being and a softy. So I'm going to go with Kairos Tonga for one of mine. Who are you going to go with?
I love that. One of mine, kind of along those same lines, the furthest from scary human being there is Dennis Pitta.
Yes.
We all know and love Dennis Pitta. He's absolutely hilarious. But again, for the opposing team, he was a scary guy because when he started his career, he was unassuming. He was a preferred walk-on. No one even paid attention to the guy. And then he ends up as being one of the best tight ends in the country and probably the best tight end in BYU history. I like this little stat. In 2009, he was, stats-wise, the best tight end in college football, but the Mackey Award went to Aaron Hernandez from Florida instead. Interesting. Very interesting there. But Pitta had 2,901 receiving yards on 221 receptions in his 4 years with the Cougars. Very scary. Had a great NFL career
Won a Super Bowl
before he got hurt. Yes, and he played a huge role with the Baltimore Ravens, so much so that they loved him even after he retired.
Yep.
They made him stay and do some, is it radio? He does some radio broadcasts for him?
Yeah, I don't know if he still does that. I don't know if he's doing them this year, but yeah, I know as of last year he was still doing them. I guess maybe I maybe need to find out if he's still doing those. But, well, he and Joe Flacco were like best friends.
Oh, yeah.
On the field and off. They love to hang out. And then, obviously, if you're Joe Flacco back in the day with the Ravens, and you've got a guy that's as sure-handed as Dennis Pitta, yeah, of course he's going to be your best friend.
Well, that's why I think he's up there in the scariest players, because he's so unassuming. Like, if you know him off the field, you're like, psh, this guy. You know what I'm saying? He doesn't scare you in the slightest. And then he's a force to be reckoned with on the field.
All right, let's stay in the AFC North in terms of former Cougars that ended up in that division. We're going to go with Brett Kiesel.
Yes.
Now he's another defensive lineman. I went with Kyrus with one of mine. Stay on the defensive line with Brett Kiesel. How could you not be scared of a guy whose personal brand became Fear the Beard? Now, that certainly was not while he was at BYU because of the grooming standards. There was no beard, but his stats speak for themselves at BYU. There was a reason why the Steelers drafted him.
I don't think he'll be offended by saying he actually looks scary, too.
Well,
I don't think he'd be offended by that.
Look, and look, the beard became a trademark of his, and he even parlayed that into a role in The Dark Knight Rises.
Yes.
So his character, spoiler alert, I know the movie's been out for over a decade, but spoiler alert, has it been out a decade
Someone's
already?
going to call in. How dare
It's
you?
like, how dare you? It was on my to-do list to watch this weekend.
At least a decade.
Yeah.
At least a decade.
So he dies. He dies in the movie.
Yeah. Field collapses.
The field, yeah.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. So, again, spoiler alert. We apologize if you're hoping that Brett Kiesel is the hero of the story. But, yeah, so I'm going to go with Brett Kiesel as one of my other scariest players for BYU.
And he is a great human being. I interviewed him on the sideline a couple years ago, and he was hysterical. Loved the guy. Okay, my next one, who actually does scare me a little bit. I'm not going to lie to you. Luke Staley.
His calves scare me. Biggest calves I've ever seen in my life.
They are huge. No, I know. My goodness. No wonder why he did so well as a running back, but couldn't stay healthy. Dang it. That was
such a shame.
his Achilles heel. But Staley's junior season, he rushed for over 1,500 yards and scored 24 touchdowns on 8.1 yards per carry. Those numbers are in Staley, the Doak Walker Award, given to the best running back in college football. And that was in just 11 games because he was injured. I remember watching him receive that award, and he was on crutches.
Yes, that's right.
Poor guy. He was a phenomenal athlete.
Yeah, he was. He certainly gets mentioned as one of the best running backs ever at BYU, and I'm still not sure that's giving him his just due. He was a dominating running back at BYU. I mean, he was that perfect combination of the bulk and the size that you want for a bruising back, but also had this unbelievable speed. I think the highlight that almost every BYU fan that was around at that time was when he runs around the side in the Utah game for the winning touchdown. And I still get chills thinking about that moment. I was in the press box covering that for one of the sports radio stations in Salt Lake. And I mean, I had chills then, and I still have chills now even thinking about that touchdown. That's a good one, Luke Staley. That's
I'm pretty sure BYU fans wept when he got injured. I think it was against Hawaii, was it not?
It was against Mississippi State. He didn't get to play against Hawaii.
That's right.
All right, my last one is certainly not scary. He's not a scary person, but scary in his game and how the opposing team viewed him, and that's Jim McMahon. Obviously, an unbelievable one of the greatest quarterbacks, and you could certainly make the case the greatest quarterback to ever play at BYU. We know how dominant he was. Let me just give you his career totals. So his career totals while at BYU, 9,536 passing yards, 84 touchdowns, and that doesn't even include bowl games, by the way, okay? McMahon left college with 70 NCAA records and tied for one more. He's in the College Football Hall of Fame. His game, certainly scary, and by that I mean scary good.
It's so fun reading Steve Young's autobiography when he talks about being behind Jim McMahon and just how intimidated he was because how good he was. In all of college football at that time. He was so dominant. He would just come out and dominate games.
And his persona, his personality,
I don't care.
yes, was it, honestly, I've got to assume it was super intimidating.
I'm sure.
You know what I mean?
He's still intimidating with those glasses, his sunglasses that he never takes off. Intimidating guy.
Very intimidating. All right, who's your last one?
My last one is, last but not least, Ziggy Ansah.
Love Ziggy.
My goodness. Guy comes from Ghana. He tries out for the track team, but he's running people over. He was too big to run track, so they had him go try out for basketball. And Dave Rose is like, I think you need to play football, man. I'm going to send you over to Bronco Mendenhall. And then Kyle Van Noy, bless his heart, has to help him put on his pads and tie up his cleats. And then he becomes the 5th pick overall in the draft in 2013. The guy's 6'5", 275 pounds. And he's doing great in the NFL right now.
Yeah, he dealt with some injuries over the last couple of seasons, but now he's with the San Francisco 49ers. And, yeah, I mean, this is a guy, unbelievable story to begin with. And the fact that he's even in the NFL, honestly, we see all these inspirational sports movies from Disney. Ziggy Ansah absolutely could be one of those stories that Disney produces and comes out with a movie about his life. I mean, it's that good.
Love that guy. Well, guys, let Shep and I know. Tweet at us what you think are some of the scariest BYU players, football players in history, because I would love to know what your thoughts are, because we left out a lot of very scary guys on the field. But coming up next, we're going to be talking about the two mascots, Cosmo the Cougar and Big Red from Western Kentucky. Who's the best?
Their mascot is not a stick of the gum, by the way.
No, it's not. It's definitely not that. It's a big red blob. But anyway, we're going to, ESPNU did a little virtual pep rally. We're going to listen to a little bit of that coming up on the Cougar Tailgate.
Welcome back into the Cougar Tailgate. I'm Jason Shepard.
And I'm Lauren McLean. Early in the program today, WKU's historian and emeritus sports information director Paul Jess, who was a great guy, by the way, taught us some of the story behind the Hilltoppers' famous ambiguous mascot, Big Red. And remember, if you miss any of the show today, you can always go back and check out the podcast feed wherever you get podcasts or at BYUradio.org. So Big Red, Shep, is famous for being weird.
Weird looking.
I don't know.
Again,
yeah. Nothing to do with the school. Like
of
him,
course not.
Literally looking at the mascot, you're like, huh? What are you? What? Anyway, kind of like Gritty or the Philly Fanatic or the Stanford Tree. Sometimes mascots are loved just because they're a little goofy.
All right, we know that Big Red is at least Twitter famous, though, because when SiriusXM ran a Twitter poll earlier in the pandemic to find the greatest college football mascot and forgot to include Big Red, the fans rioted of Western Kentucky. Yeah, the Hilltopper fans were a little upset. And by the way, they also forgot the three-point dunking, halftime dancing, empty stadium bowling, Cosmo the Cougar as well. How do you forget
both of those? Now that's the real travesty.
Agreed. But how do you forget both of those mascots? So, as Twitter likes to do, they raised a little bit of a ruckus on both sides, and Twitter honestly was forced to listen to the fans and actually inserted BYU and Western Kentucky's mascot into the play-in games, so they were the 16 seeds on opposite sides of the bracket. And of course, these two underdogs, you could even call them the Cinderellas, if you will, went all the way to the championship, prompting Twitter to demand a game to find out who the true best mascot is. And when schedules were upended, the two schools found a way to make it happen.
Cosmo the Cougar was trending #1 in the No, I'm just kidding. But I wouldn't be surprised that day. It was absolute mayhem to get them on the list.
Look, and if there's anything BYU fans love to do, it is to jimmer a poll. If there is, they will. And by the way, if you're not familiar with the term, that just means go and vote.
Take it over.
Take it over. Yes,
yep.
The term jimmer the poll, because anytime jimmer was involved in a poll, across. I mean, anytime there was a Jimmer Fredette poll question, BYU fans, he would win every single time. So it's turned into you Jimmer the poll.
That's right.
Yes.
People probably think, do BYU fans have absolutely nothing else to do than sit on Twitter?
No, we're just great multitaskers.
I think that's what it is. All right, you can hear Cougar Tailgate every Saturday on SiriusXM channel 143 BYU Radio. But over on ESPNU channel 84 this week, Sirius held a virtual pep rally for the two teams featuring their mascots. Fans were invited via Zoom, and it was a great time. Let's listen to some of the highlights.
Thank you all so much for joining us for this virtual pep rally. I'm Nicole Auerbach. He's Ben Hartsock. We are actually so honored to get to host a pep rally before the Western Kentucky BYU game. Obviously, they need no introduction. Cosmo and Big Red, they're really why we are here. Wow, I feel like Cosmo is going to do some flips or something. He's got like the gymnastics background. But don't worry. Big Red has a great belly. Yes, I see. I know. Look, yes, look at how beautiful Big Red is as well. Look at these guys, Ben. I just can't. It's such an honor to share a screen with them.
On Halloween to celebrate, we've all got some different costumes. I had an outfit, but it doesn't quite work.
Put it on. Come on, you got to see it.
Let me see. I'll see if I can kind of tip my thing here.
All right, we got to see it, and I will show you guys. I like it. We got a cowboy. My dog is here as a slice of pizza.
And you see some of the different the different athletic directors that have made that decision. I remember the athletic director of Chattanooga early on during this process saying, have team will travel.
I see Tom Holmo, BYU, in the comment section in the chat. Tom, what is your favorite thing about your mascot, Cosmo? Why do you think Cosmo was such a strong performer in the bracket?
Well, I think that like one of my favorite, back when I was a kid, I used to watch ABC Wide World of Sports. And I think Jim McKay would say the color and pageantry of college football. And I really think that the mascots and the bands and the cheer squads, and I think they add an essence to the game. We don't really have that right now, Nicole. Some of these schools, when you get to a game, all of that's missing. So for my Cosmo, I played at BYU a long, long time ago. And my wife was a cheerleader here at BYU. So I was involved with Cosmo way back when. And he's just been a very consistent, great performer. I think they're enjoying the game more this year than perhaps they have. Now, it's hard without the fans in the stands. There's a lot of attention that's gone. But then after the game, this is kind of an amazing thing. We have had some really good success this year, but after the game, the camaraderie and the sportsmanship between the two teams after the game, I've never seen anything like it before. They get together because they're like, hey, it's like Sandlot. You know, after the game, you're down at the park, you played the game, you're going home to dinner and go, I'll see you tomorrow. We're not going to play them again, but the camaraderie and the unity of college football right now, if you look carefully or you know what you're looking for, you're going to see it.
If Johnny Linehan, I see him there. He's a former BYU punter. He is now joining us.
Yeah, well, I mean, people know that I like the attention. I'm always trying to stay relevant. So, I mean, I really am the Uncle Rico. Provo is a beautiful place, right? So I'm from New Zealand, hence the accent. You can guess which position I play on the field because I couldn't play any other position. I could only kick a football. But I think like punters do everything right and kick. I mean, we got to catch, we can maybe pass, we can run. If you me, maybe not so well. That's what Coach Satake is all about. He's all about his players. He's gonna die for you, but we're also as players and former players, we'll die for him, right? And so we'll want to run through a wall for Coach Satake because he protects us, he helps us grow on and off the field, and he's just a leader that I can look up to, not just in football, but more so in life.
The best thing you do is you have as a great team, a great quarterback, a Heisman contender. The more publicity that you can get, the better for your program. Because at the end of this, if you look at an undefeated BYU team that has played, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, potentially 10 games, and you put that against perhaps a Big Ten champion that only played 5 or 6, boy, this is in a year where wild things are happening. That's a very compelling argument that BYU can make.
Before we let these mascots go, we do have a little bit of breaking news that we are told we can report. There may or may not be a coordinated dance routine involving both mascots during the first half of the game on Saturday night. So be on the lookout for that, because look at these two. I mean, you can't even imagine two better mascots teaming up on the field for this game.
You know what, Lauren? There's nothing more 2020 than a virtual pep rally. It's
No,
all
there
virtual
isn't.
these days, you know?
Where the people have pom-poms over Zoom, like, yeah!
I would hope so.
I hope they did.
Like, if it's a virtual pep rally, you do everything you would do at a normal pep rally. You just do it on your computer. So I'm certainly hoping so. But yeah, that was pretty cool to actually get that going. And obviously, it was a nice tie-in with this week with BYU hosting Western Kentucky.
That's right. By the way, Shep, I taught my 1.5-year-old son the Cougar fight song. Mm-hmm. And he loves it. It's what he always like, Mama, rah, 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 rah. He loves doing that part. I thought you would love that.
It's it's a great fight
Tugs
song.
at the old heartstrings.
There's nothing better than teaching your children when they're young. I have, honestly,
truth.
On my phone to this day, I still have videos, and I don't have it with my two older kids, but with the two younger kids, when I had more, the phone was more of a thing.
Right.
I have video of them singing the fight song and the Go Cougs when they're like 1 and 2, and I will never delete those.
And now they're like, I hate you so much, Dad, for making me do it. I'm just kidding.
They're still young enough where Dad's still cool. That will change very soon, I'm sure.
Your older two, however.
The older two think I'm an idiot.
Parenthood. On that note, thanks for listening. You can join the Cougar Tailgate virtually, of course, every Saturday at noon Mountain Time, or download, rate, and review our podcast wherever you get podcasts, Apple, TuneIn, Stitcher, Spotify, or on BYURadio.org. It's a spooky matchup with Western Kentucky this Halloween night, and then Boise State on the horizon for next week. This is Cougar Tailgate.